Jaipur.
Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Nipakshi Kurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Trump speaks to NATO's narrative concerning Greenland, says Denmark cannot protect the island. Australia's lower house approves tougher gun control laws in response to Bondi Beach mass shooting, sends to Senate for consideration. Dozens of worshippers abducted in Nigeria church attacks. Church leader says more than 160 missing. India steps up investment pitch at World Economic Forum at Davos. Maharashtra secures $173 billion USD investment on day one. And on to the details now. US President Donald Trump said on Tuesday he had a very good telephone call with Secretary General of NATO Mark Rutte concerning Greenland. Trump said in a post on Truth Social, and I quote, "Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back on that. Everyone agrees," unquote. Well, Trump also said the United States would talk about acquiring Greenland at this week's Davos World Economic Forum because Denmark cannot protect the territory. And US President Donald Trump's government has asked countries to pay $1 billion for a permanent spot on his Board of Peace aimed at resolving conflicts. Now, the board was originally conceived to oversee the rebuilding of conflict-torn Gaza, but the charter does not appear to limit its role to the occupied Palestinian territory. What exactly will it do, and who has been invited? Let's look at this report.
The United Nations Security Council formally adopted my peace plan and officially...
The Board of Peace will be chaired by Trump according to its founding charter as reported by the news agency AFP. It is an international organization that seeks to promote stability, restore dependable and lawful governance, and secure enduring peace in areas affected or threatened by conflict, reads the preamble of the charter sent to countries invited to participate. Trump will be chairman but also separately serve as inaugural representative of the United States of America. The chairman shall have exclusive authority to create, modify, or dissolve subsidiary entities as necessary or appropriate to fulfill the Board of Peace's mission, the document states. He will pick members of an executive board to be leaders of global stature to serve 2-year terms, subject to removal by the chairman. The chairman can be replaced only in case of voluntary resignation or as a result of incapacity. Member states have to be invited by the US President and will be represented by their head of state or government. The board will convene voting meetings at least annually, and each member state shall have 1 vote. The White House has said its members will include US President Donald Trump as chair, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Trump's special negotiator, Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, Tony Blair, former UK Prime Minister, Mark Rowan, billionaire US financier, Ajay Banga, World Bank President, Robert Gabriel, loyal Trump aide on the National Security Council. The list of countries and leaders who say they have been invited include, but are not limited to, Russia's President Vladimir Putin, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Argentina's President Javier Milei, Jordan, Brazil, Paraguay, India, Pakistan, Germany, France, Italy, Hungary, Romania, Uzbekistan, Belarus, Greece, Morocco, Slovenia, Poland. Also, Israel and Hamas signed off on Trump's plan, which says a Palestinian technocratic administration will be overseen by an international board, which will supervise Gaza's governance for a transitional period. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, some updates on Iran protests now. Iran's police chief has warned protesters involved in what authorities call riots to surrender within 3 days or face strict legal action, while promising leniency for those misled into joining the unrest. At the same time, Iran's leadership pledged to urgently address economic grievances that triggered the demonstrations, even as they vowed harsh punishment for those accused of orchestrating violence. The protests represent one of the most serious challenges to the government in years, with the true scale of the crackdown unclear amid a prolonged internet shutdown. Now, the UN has raised concerns over possible executions, calling them a tool of intimidation. Limited internet access is expected to be gradually restored. And US President Donald Trump and Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara held a key phone call on Monday, stressing Kurdish rights within a unified Syria days after a landmark deal integrated Kurdish forces under Damascus control. More in this report by DD India's Andra Sinha.
Diplomatic move. US President Donald Trump held a phone call with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara on Monday, focusing on protecting Kurdish rights within a unified Syria. The leaders stressed Syria's territorial integrity and joint efforts against Islamic State remnants. This comes after a landmark 14-point agreement between Damascus and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, brokered in part by the US. As Syrian forces advance, tensions are rising, with protests in Turkey and concerns over fragile ceasefires. The Trump-Shara call underscores strengthening US-Syria ties since Shara's forces ousted Bashar al-Assad in 2024. The January 18th integration deal includes an immediate ceasefire and SDF withdrawal from key areas like Raqqa and Deir al-Zor, handing over oil fields, dams and border crossings to Syrian control. US President Donald Trump emphasized Kurdish protections, saying the US supports a sovereign Syria free from terrorism. Syrian President Shara echoed this, affirming unity and counter-terrorism cooperation. But the pact has sparked backlash. Turkey, a Shara ally, calls it a historic turning point against Kurdistan Workers' Party threats, advancing their peace process. Yet, Turkey's Kurdish minority, about 20% of the population, is anxious. In Diyarbakir, despite heavy snow, 500 protesters clashed with police, leading to over 20 arrests. In Istanbul, a rally was dispersed, with 10 detained. Post-ceasefire clashes near Raqqa and ISIS prisoner escapes from facilities like Shaddadi prison highlight the fragile truce. Amid these developments, EU High Representative Kaja Kallas urged all military activities in Syria to cease immediately, calling for de-escalation to protect civilians and ensure long-term stability. While the integration aims to reunify Syria, questions linger over Kurdish autonomy and regional dynamics. Antara Sinha for DD India.
Well, the most consequential test of the US Federal Reserve's independence in more than a century of existence comes before the Supreme Court this week, with the world watching whether the court will shield the central bank from political influence, as Congress intended, or allow President Donald Trump to fire members of the Fed as he sees fit. Now, dismissed Fed Governor Lisa Cook and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell contend that Trump's anger over lingering high interest rates is the real motivation behind Cook's attempt at firing and, more recently, threatened criminal charges against Powell. Now, Cook sued the administration, and a lower court ruled she could keep her job pending a hearing. Trump then appealed, setting up for January 21st showdown at the Supreme Court. Now, Britain is considering a range of measures to better protect children online, including an Australian-style ban on the social media for those below a certain age and tougher guidance for use of mobile phones in the schools. Now, the proposals come as governments and regulators worldwide contend with the risk of exposing children to social media, as well as the impact of screen time on their development and mental health. The government, in a statement, said it would examine evidence from around the world on a wide range of suggested proposals, including looking at whether a social media ban for children would be effective, and if one was introduced, how best to make it work. Now, the government did not mention a particular age limit here, but said it was exploring a ban for children under a specific age. According to the statement, ministers will visit Australia, which last month became the first country to ban social media for children under 16, to learn from their approach. And Australia's lower house of parliament has passed new laws for a national gun buyback, tighter background checks for gun licenses, and a crackdown on hate crimes in response to the country's worst mass shooting in decades at a Jewish festival last month. Now, the two bills for stricter gun control and anti-hate measures passed on Tuesday by the House of Representatives in a special parliament session will now go to the upper house Senate for debate. The gun control laws are expected to pass with the support of the Greens party, despite opposition from the Conservative Liberal National Coalition. Now, the anti-hate laws are likely to pass with support from the Liberal Party. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese recalled Parliament early from its summer break for this week's special two-day session to toughen curbs after the shooting shocked the nation and prompted calls for more action on gun control and anti-Semitism. And armed gangs known as bandits stormed multiple churches in Karmanwali village, Kajuru district of Kaduna state, northern Nigeria, on Sunday during services, abducting worshippers in a brazen mass kidnapping. Now, Reverend Joseph Hayab, head of the Christian Association of Nigeria for the North, said that 172 people were initially seized from the churches, with 9 escaping, leaving 163 still held captive. Now, Kaduna police called it unconfirmed or false, while locals accused authorities of denial amid ongoing threats disrupting farming and daily life. The attack is the latest in Nigeria's ransom-driven kidnapping crisis, which has targeted both Christians and Muslims in the north and centre. It follows a November school abduction of over 300. Experts describe banditry as a profit-seeking industry, with more attacks likely in hotspots like Kajuru amid farmer-herder clashes. And moving on, the U.S. Justice Department has said it is investigating protesters who disrupted a Sunday service at a Minnesota church because they believe a pastor there works for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, the Justice Department officials accused the protesters of desecrating a house of worship and said they will investigate them for civil rights violations. Anti-ICE protests continue in the state against President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, and the Pentagon reportedly placed 1,500 soldiers on standby for possible deployment. On Sunday, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi vowed to exercise the full force of federal law against the demonstrators who interrupted the services at the city's church in St. Paul. Later on Monday, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said on X that the Justice Department will pursue federal charges in this case. Also, in a statement, Department of Homeland Security said it has made more than 3,000 arrests in the Twin Cities since Operation Metro. DHS also said that it does not confirm or deny the identities of its agents, as publicizing their identities puts their lives and the lives of their families at serious risk. Thousands of ICE agents are in Minnesota as part of a surge by the Trump administration after his election pledge for the biggest deportation operation of undocumented migrants in history. And time now for a short break. We'll be back in a while.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, we'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching TD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on, updates from World Economic Forum in Davos. First, the festive Indian state of Maharashtra opened WEF 2026 with a record $173 billion in investment on the first day of the annual meeting. State government of Maharashtra on the Monday signed 19 MOUs involving investment commitments worth $173 billion and over 15 lakh jobs on the first day of the annual meeting in Davos. These MOUs are cross-sectors and underscore strong global confidence in Maharashtra's consumer markets, infrastructure readiness and long-term growth fundamentals. Well, Maharashtra commenced its participation at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting by inaugurating the State Pavilion, marking the beginning of a focused week of high-level engagements aimed at advancing Maharashtra's ambition of becoming a $5 trillion economy, guided by the vision of Viksit Maharashtra 2047. The Maharashtra Pavilion has been positioned as a platform for structured dialogue and investment realization, reflecting the state's approach to Davos as a forum for enabling sustained capital deployment across industry, consumer markets, hospitality and infrastructure, including core and digital. Well, the Eastern Indian state of Jharkhand marked the opening day of the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos with a series of high-level engagements aimed at positioning the state within global economic and policy conversations. Well, Jharkhand Chief Minister in a social media post termed the day one in Davos as historic. He said the discussion took place on investments in new age green steel technology in Jharkhand with Tata Steel, investments in urban mobility and other sectors with the Sweden-India Business Council. The discussions also held with the Women Political Leaders Forum on leadership and participation of women in politics, cooperation in various sectors with WEF representatives and meaningful discussions on investments in the power and IT sectors with Hitachi and Tech Mahindra were also held on the day one of the annual meeting. A Northeast Indian state of Assam made its debut at the 56th World Economic Forum in Davos on Monday, positioning itself as India's fastest growing state and a prime destination for green energy, semiconductors and tourism investment. Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has created history by becoming the first Chief Minister from Assam to attend the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Switzerland. His participation at WEF Davos 2026, being held from 19th to 23rd of January, marks a significant milestone in positioning Assam on the global economic and policy-making stage. Highlighting Assam's strengths, Chief Minister Sarma urged global investors to invest in emerging state and emerging economy.
We want to send a message that Assam is now an emerging state, emerging economy. So when you are thinking of investing in India, you can consider Assam as one of the destination. Assam is now officially we are the fastest growing state in the country.
While talking to Indian news agency ANI, Sarma said the growth of Assam and Northeast are interlinked. He said any development in Assam benefits the whole of Northeast.
We do not see Assam in isolation of Northeast, because when something happens in Assam, we are so interconnected that you cannot say that this is for Assam and this is not for Northeast. Like when Tata sets up semiconductor industry, it may be geographically in Assam, but it has to be for all Northeastern state. So Guwahati being the gateway of Northeastern state, the entire talent pool of the region, they comes to Guwahati. So Assam provide that ecosystem or opportunity to the youth of entire Northeast. So if I can bring 1 rupee to Assam, you can also say automatically that 1 rupee goes to Northeast.
Well, Indian Minister of Electronics and Information Technology Ashwini Vaishnaw will attend panel discussion on AI and the economy in Davos on Tuesday. And moving on, Bharatiya Janata Party leader Nitin Nabin took oath as party's new national president, marking a key transition in the ruling party's organizational leadership. The swearing-in ceremony was attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other senior party leaders. At the age of 45, Nitin Nabin became the youngest leader ever to occupy the post of national president in the BJP. He is the son of late BJP leader and former MLA Nabin Kishore Prasad Sinha. Nitin Nabin is an undefeated five-time MLA from Bankipur Assembly constituency in Bihar. He has a reputation for winning elections by huge margins, starting with the first by-poll he contested in 2006. He won that particular election by nearly 60,000 votes. Last year, Nabin won his latest term as MLA by more than 51,000 votes. And on to some sports news now. Real Madrid will be aiming to get back to winning ways in the Champions League when they host AS Monaco on Tuesday night. This will be Real Madrid's first Champions League match under new manager Alvaro Arbeloa. Los Blancos are currently 7th in the table with 12 points from 6 games and are pushing for a top 8 finish. After winning 3 games in a row, they have lost 2 of their last 3 European matches, including a 2-1 defeat to Manchester City in their previous outing. Meanwhile, AS Monaco sit 19th in the standings with 9 points from 6 games. They are just 3 points above 25th placed Benfica and cannot afford to drop points as they look to avoid an early exit from the competition. And Novak Djokovic embarked on his latest quest to win a record 25th Grand Slam by easing to a straight-set victory at the Australian Open. The Serb dismissed Spain's Pedro Martinez 6-3, 6-2, 6-2 in 2 hours and meets Italian qualifier Francesco Mastrelli. In the second round, it was his 100th victory at the Grand Slam. Djokovic needed to overcome world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz and defending champion Jannik Sinner if he were to win a record 25th major. He's been stuck on 24 major titles since winning the US Open in 2023. Meanwhile, Iga Swiatek survived a scare before battling past Chinese qualifier Yuan Yue to launch a bid for the career Grand Slam in an unconvincing fashion. The Polish second seed was pushed to the limit in the first set before prevailing 7-6, 6-3 to set up a final clash with Czech player Maria Bazukova. Swiatek has won 4 French Open titles, the US Open and Wimbledon, but a title at Melbourne Park remains elusive. An American tennis player, Madison Keys, began her Australian Open title defense with a win over Alexandra Olenikova. Keys defeated the Ukrainian Grand Slam debutant 7-6, 6-1 to reach the second round at Melbourne Park on Tuesday. The American struggled early at Rod Laver Arena, giving up a double break with some untimely double faults. She fought back to level the first set at 4-4 but was pushed into a tiebreak by Olenikova's deep looping shots. Keys held her nerve to close out of the match and advance to the next round. And 2-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu will aim to bounce back when she leads India's challenge at the Indonesia Masters badminton tournament starting on Tuesday with qualifiers. Sindhu will eye a deep run after falling at the first hurdle in the India Open last week. The Indian shuttler had reached the semi-finals of the season opening Malaysia Open early this month and will face Manami Suyuzu of Japan in the first round. Sindhu will be accompanied by Malvika Bansod, Tanvi Sharma and Unnati Huja in the women's single main draw. Well, India's top men's single player Lakshya Sen will look to carry forward the positive from his quarter-final run at the Indian Open last week. Former world number 1 Kidambi Srikanth is also in the men's single draw along with compatriots H.S. Pranoy, Tarun Manipalli and Ayush Shetty. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipak Shikurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.